Hello, and welcome to the 2021 Associated Student Government Debates, hosted by CMU TV. I am Justin Platt, your moderator for the evening. Tonight, we have debates between the trustees candidates as well as the president and vice president candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to a question and 1 minute for a rebuttal. Our first debate is between Aaron Reed and Daniel Haas. Candidate Reed, we'll begin with you. What is the Joint Budget Committee? What is the purpose of the student trustee to be there? And how will you utilize that role? You have 2 minutes.
As a student, I want to talk to students and make sure that their voices are amplified and give them the power. I kind of want to make sure that these students know how much power they have, because oftentimes I know when I came here as a freshman, I just felt that I was just a student. I just came to class, go to class, but I want to say a year ago, the student body president told me that the students really have the most power. So as the trustee, I want to be somebody to show the students, the student body, how much power they actually have, and just want to be that person that they can come to, because I think I'm a very approachable person and I can advocate for students.
All right, thank you. Candidate Haas, your rebuttal.
So I think that, obviously you can't really rebut that. That's a really good point, that we need to amplify the student voice. That's the whole entire point of the trustee. I would agree with that. However, going back to the question, the Joint Budget Committee is the committee within Colorado that determines the budget. They don't completely determine the budget, but they play the most important role in determining the state's budget, part of which is funding for higher education, which includes Colorado Mesa University. It's about 20% of our budgeting. And a lot of the arguments that need to happen with that representation is the fact that, as it stands, Asian Pacific Islanders are not included in that. International students aren't included in that. We fought for first gens to be included. They are included now, but we just need to continue to fight to make sure that Colorado Mesa University gets funding, as well as different demographics within the school get it as well.
All right. And now your response to the same question. What is the Joint Budget Committee? What is the purpose of the student trustee to be there, and how will you utilize that role?
So once again, I think the most important thing is just to amplify the voices and find where there are pockets in that budget that need to be expanded. So once again, Asian Pacific Islanders are not included in that. They need to be included in it, in my opinion. That would help CMU a lot. That would help HPA. That would help a lot of different orgs and clubs and organizations. Also, I was recently speaking with ISA, and the international students aren't included at all. I know that they don't have any scholarship opportunities on campus. It's really difficult to have that funding when you're so far away from home, and you pretty much just get the merit scholarship and that's it. So I think that's another conversation that we need to have at the state. The student trustee's role is to represent all the students there. So you would go and testify in front of the committee and effectively say, like, hey, this is why I think and this is why my students think that this is important for you to include in that funding. And that's how you advocate more. I know another big issue that we're dealing with right now is WCCC is not funded enough. So they're counted as part of CMU. They need to be counted as a separate community college so that they can get better funding, so that we can lower the prices even more. So ultimately, it's trying to put money into students' pockets, which in my opinion is one of the most important things you can do.
Okay. Candidate Reed, your rebuttal.
I agree that having given students more money in their pocket is huge. I know that anything about student fees is huge, especially for students coming from all around the country. And you were talking about the ISA and the HPA, and I honestly had a close relationship with a lot of those students as the director of CIC. So there was a lot of students from the ISA that couldn't come back because of COVID. So that was tough for them. But we still managed to get somebody into that position and get the international students, get their alliance back. So I think that was good. But yeah, I think getting students' fees low and getting money in pockets is huge.
Okay. Candidate Haas, if you could change one thing on campus, what would you change? How would facilitate that change in the change in general? You have 2 minutes to answer.
So I think one of the biggest issues that I've heard during this campaign is that a lot of students feel isolated within their department. So I'm a political science major. I don't get to branch out to UMass Comm majors as much. I don't get to branch out to the business majors as much. And part of that is kind of blowback from Colorado Mesa University expanding in such a flat way, if that makes sense. So we have such far apart campus. I mean, it's a long campus, right? And I think that part of the way you facilitate that change is by advocating for organizations and clubs, because that's an area where obviously, I mean, we're all from different backgrounds, yet we're here talking, as well as working with whoever the new president is to make sure that any additional growth in this university also promotes that togetherness, as well as helping, making sure that whoever the new or continuing vice president of academic affairs makes sure that that is a priority communicated to all of our different faculty.
Candidate Reed, your rebuttal.
I would say I was just in a conversation today actually with the Cultural and Diversity Working Group, and we were talking about mental health and how that works with isolation and how we're trying to improve that. So I think mental health is huge, just improving that aspect and making students feel comfortable here on campus, and I think that's huge.
And now your response to the same question. If you could change one thing on campus, what would you change? How would you facilitate that change, or just change in general?
I think one thing I would change is probably just give these students, I want to say, confidence in their voice, to make students feel that they are louder than what they think they are. Because, like I said earlier, as a student, when I came in as a freshman, I felt that I had no voice. I think when I eventually got into ASG, I realized the power that the students have. So I think I would just really just try to empower the students, or make the students feel empowered to really make change if they want it, because it's definitely possible. And I would facilitate that by, if I was the trustee, by being, like I said earlier, an approachable person that they can come and talk to, where I can bring those issues up to, the higher ups.
Okay. Candidate Haas, rebuttal.
So I think, obviously, once again, that's a great point, and that's something that we need to continue to advocate for, the fact that students do have so much power on this campus. I agree, not many people really, I think, understand how much power they do have. Okay. I do think, though, that with a new president coming in, it is in an area where we need to make sure that we have a trustee that knows how to navigate the political relationships to make sure that that is continued to be used, because part of that was President Foster's legacy, and with the new president, if we don't have a experienced enough trustee, we could potentially lose that.
Candidate Reed, what have you done in this previous year of student leadership in your orgs that supports the claims you are making on your social media profile and sets you apart from your opponent? You have 2 minutes.
Well, I would say first, as the director of CIC, I raised the pay of the assistant coordinator. And I also was a part of the change of, we were initially the Cultural Diversity Board, and I was on the team to kind of change the name to the Cultural Inclusion Council. And I believe that I gave a lot of students just the opportunity to be in leadership positions, with offering them chances to speak at certain events, or just bringing people that usually don't go to events, brought them out to certain events that we had, especially for CIC, or even football games, sporting events. And also, I would say that I definitely just make people feel comfortable by my approach as a mass communications major. I pay attention to the nonverbal cues. I think I specialize in communicating, so I think as a leader, I was able to bring a lot to people and students, and making people feel empowered.
Okay. Candidate Haas, rebuttal.
So once again, I'm not going to directly rebut that claim, because I agree. I think Aaron is a very communicable guy, and I think that he definitely elevated a lot of students into powers, or positions of power, I should say. I think that, to respond to that specifically, though, I think I also did the same thing through making sure that I connected students to different areas where they could feel more heard, whether it be saying like, hey, let's meet with Vice President Howell, or let's meet with President Foster during his office hours, or just advocating for students and connecting them to the people who can really make the change in their life. One of those things was the Sustainability Council, which I'm a part of. I also helped bridge that gap and brought them into ASG, passed a resolution, and since then we've officially convinced Sodexo to ban styrofoam for next year. So.
Okay. And now your answer to the same question. What have you done in this previous year of student leadership in your orgs that support the claims you are making on your social media profiles and sets you apart from your opponent?
So I think this is perfect timing. I actually just used my social media to take a picture of the Center for Reflection. I think that was a huge thing that our org together, I don't want to say that I personally did that because that would be an absolute lie. It was a combined effort of the executive branch, including all of us, as well as the Senate itself, as well as the administration, to help fund and issue a statement of support in the building of the Center for Reflection, which I think is something that is a different avenue for mental health concerns. I mean, personally, I've been using it every once in a while. This campaign's obviously increasing anxiety, and it's like, oh wow, sometimes I get frazzled. So then I'll go sit down and just kind of sit there for a minute and say, okay, I've got it. So I think that is a very tangible, literal building that ASG worked together. Once again, it's not just me, it's everybody to actually build and help support. So,
Candidate Reed, rebuttal.
I would say I didn't do anything like a building, but I did. I managed to get into the community, get my name into the community. Like this summer, I was on a committee with President Foster and the Chief of Police of Grand Junction, just kind of bridging the gap between the students and the local law enforcement. And I managed to build relationships with community members and leaders on this campus. And I think I did a very good job with leadership, with just kind of telling people about the committee and what we talked about. And we kind of worked on a lot of stuff going into this year, and we also changed the name of the Walter Walker Field that a lot of people knew about that. So we kind of made steps that I feel like weren't really amplified and on a large scale before the year, but I think that with that committee I really built good relationships with community members and improved on my leadership skills.
All right. Thank you both for being here this evening, and thank you for your answers. Voting for ASG elections begins April 19th and closes the 21st. With CMU TV, I'm your moderator, Justin Platt. Stay tuned for our President and Vice President debates up next.